The blood-red sunset painted the dusty street of Sweetwater Creek as Eliza Brooks clutched her side, tasting copper in her mouth where her lip had split. She stumbled behind Donovan's saloon, desperate to escape the brutal hands of her dead husband's brother, who claimed she owed him everything Thomas had left behind, including herself. The year was 1878, and the Dakota Territory was no place for a widow with nothing but bruises and broken promises to her name. Eliza slumped against the rough wooden wall, her auburn hair falling loose from its pins, obscuring the purple bloom spreading across her cheekbone. Her breath came in shallow gasps as she tried to make herself invisible in the gathering shadows. She didn't hear the approaching footsteps until a tall figure loomed over her. Instinctively, she raised her arms to shield her face, expecting another blow. "Madam." The voice was low, gravelly, but lacking the slurred edge of drunkenness she'd come to fear. Eliza lowered her arms just enough to see him, a weathered man in his early 30s with eyes the color of a stormy sky and a face hardened by sun and wind. His clothes were trail-worn but clean, and the star pinned to his vest caught the last light of day. "You hurt bad?" he asked, crouching down to her level, careful to keep a respectful distance. "I'll be fine," Eliza whispered, though the tremor in her voice betrayed her. The man's eyes narrowed as he took in her condition, the torn dress, the bruises both fresh and fading, the way she cradled her ribs. "That William Brooks' handiwork?" he asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Eliza's eyes widened. "How did you?" "I'm Deputy Marshal Ryan Yates." "Heard about Thomas passing. Also heard his brother's been causing trouble." He glanced toward the saloon where raucous laughter spilled into the evening air. "He in there now?" "Yes," Eliza admitted, trying to straighten herself despite the pain. "But please don't trouble yourself." "He'll only be worse tomorrow." If Ryan Yates stood to his full height, adjusting his hat. "Pack your things, Mrs. Brooks. You're coming home with me." Eliza stared at him, bewildered. "I beg your pardon. You need somewhere safe tonight." "My sister's old room is sitting empty at my place outside town." His eyes softened a fraction. "No strings, madam. Just offering you shelter till we sort this out proper." "You don't know me," Eliza protested weakly. "Know enough," Ryan replied. No woman deserves what's been done to you. Know the law's supposed to protect widows, not let them get beaten behind saloons." He extended his hand without touching her. "Your choice, Mrs. Brooks, but nightfall's coming fast and that man in there isn't done with you yet." Eliza thought of the tiny room she rented above the mercantile and how easily William had kicked in the door last time. She thought of the 3 nights she'd spent hiding in the livery stable when he'd been on a particularly bad tier. She had no family within 500 miles, no friends brave enough to stand against William Brooks and his drinking companions. "I have very little to pack," she finally said, accepting his outstretched hand. Ryan nodded once. "I'll wait here. You slip around front and get what you need. Don't let him see you." 20 minutes later, Eliza returned with a small carpet bag containing everything she still owned in the world. Ryan helped her onto his horse, mounting behind her with practiced ease. They rode in silence as Sweetwater Creek grew small behind them, the lights from the saloon fading into the vast Dakota night. Ryan's homestead appeared after a 30-minute ride, a modest but well-built cabin with a small barn and corral to one side. A vegetable garden stretched along the southern exposure and a stream gurgled nearby. It wasn't grand, but it was neat and solid, speaking of care and hard work. "It's not much," Ryan said as he helped her down, "but it's quiet. No one will bother you here." Inside, a single lamp burned low on a table. The main room held simple furniture, a table with 4 chairs, a stone fireplace with a rocking chair beside it, shelves with books and a few personal items. Ryan moved efficiently, building up the fire and lighting another lamp. "Through there," he said, pointing to a door off the main room. "My sister Rachel stayed with me for a while after her husband passed. Moved east last year to live with our aunt." The small bedroom was tidy, with a narrow bed covered by a patchwork quilt and a chest of drawers with a washbasin atop it. Eliza set her bag down, overwhelmed by the sudden turn her evening had taken. "Thank you," she managed. "This is very kind." Ryan shook his head. "Just doing what's right." "You hungry?" She hadn't eaten since morning, but the pain in her ribs had dulled her appetite. Still, she nodded, knowing she needed to keep up her strength. While Ryan heated a pot of stew that had been simmering at the back of the fireplace, Eliza washed her face in the bedroom, wincing as the cool water touched her bruises. She did her best to tidy her hair and straighten her torn dress, wishing she had something else to wear that wasn't packed away in her bag. At the table, Ryan served her a bowl of venison stew and cut thick slices of bread. He ate quietly, not pressing her to talk, which Eliza appreciated. When they finished, he poured them each a cup of coffee. "William Brooks is a problem," Ryan finally said. "Not just for you. Been running liquor to the reservation, cheating at cards, picking fights. Judge isn't due for another 2 weeks, but when he arrives, I plan to have enough to put William away for a good long while." Eliza's hands tightened around her cup. "He won't go easily. Few do." Ryan studied her across the table. "How long was he hurting you, since Thomas died 6 months ago?" "William thinks everything Thomas had should be his, including me." She swallowed hard. "Thomas and I were only married a year when the fever took him. We had no children. William says since Thomas borrowed money from him to start the store, he's owed everything in return." "The law doesn't work that way," Ryan said firmly. "The law seems very far away sometimes," Eliza replied, her voice barely audible. Ryan didn't disagree. In these parts, justice often came down to whoever had the most friends or the fastest gun. "You can stay here as long as needed," he said instead. "I'll sleep in the barn. There's a good cot out there I use sometimes when I'm working late. I can't put you out of your home, not putting me out. I've spent more nights under the stars than under a roof in my line of work." He stood, gathering the dishes. "Rest, Mrs. Brooks. Door has a good strong lock. You're safe here." After Ryan left for the barn, Eliza sat in the silence, listening to the unfamiliar creaks and settling of the cabin. For the first time in months, she didn't have to sleep with one eye open, listening for William's heavy footsteps on the stairs. The realization brought tears to her eyes, tears she hadn't allowed herself since Thomas was laid in the ground. She slept deeply that night, despite the pain in her ribs and the strangeness of her surroundings. When morning light filtered through the curtains, it took her a moment to remember where she was and how she had gotten there. The smell of coffee and bacon drew her from the bedroom. Ryan stood at the stove, already dressed for the day. He nodded a greeting but didn't intrude on her morning quiet as she took a seat at the table. "Thought you might want to rest today," he said, setting a plate before her. "I need to ride into town, check on things." "William's bound to be looking for you." "I should come with you," Eliza said. "I can't hide forever." Ryan shook his head. "Not today. Those bruises need time to heal, and William needs time to cool his temper." "Will he cool it, or just get angrier?" she asked. "Let me worry about that." Ryan poured her coffee. "You need anything while I'm in town?" Eliza hesitated. "There's a trunk of my things at the mercantile. Mr. Holden was keeping it for me in his storeroom. If you could bring it, I'd feel better having my own clothes. Consider it done." Ryan finished his breakfast and stood. "Should be back by midday. Make yourself at home. Rifle above the door is loaded if you need it." After he left, Eliza explored the cabin more thoroughly. It was a bachelor's home, practical and sparse, but clean and well-maintained. She found mending that needed attention, shirts with missing buttons, socks with holes. With nothing else to occupy her time and a need to repay Ryan's kindness somehow, she set to work. By the time the sound of hoofbeats announced his return, Eliza had repaired a pile of clothing, swept the floor, and put fresh water to boil for tea. Through the window, she saw Ryan dismount, a large trunk secured to a second horse behind him. He brought the trunk in, setting it in her room without comment about its weight. When he returned to the main room, he noticed the mending. "You didn't need to do that," he said, though his tone suggested he wasn't displeased. "I wanted to," Eliza replied. "It's the least I can do." Ryan removed his hat, running a hand through his sandy brown hair. "William was at the sheriff's office this morning demanding they find you, claimed you stole from him." Eliza's face flushed with anger. "That's absurd. Everything I have was either Thomas's or purchased with my own earnings from sewing. Sheriff knows William's lying, but he also knows William's got friends." Ryan sighed, setting his gun belt on its peg by the door. "Told the sheriff you're under marshal protection as a witness in an ongoing investigation. That'll hold for now." "Thank you," Eliza said quietly, "for everything." Ryan just nodded, seemingly uncomfortable with gratitude. "Storms coming in from the northwest, might last a couple days." As if confirming his words, the wind picked up outside, rattling the windows. By evening, rain lashed against the cabin and thunder rolled across the prairie. Eliza found herself grateful for the solid walls and roof, and for the quiet company of the deputy marshal who asked for nothing in return for his protection. Over the next few days, as the storm raged and then subsided, they fell into an unexpected rhythm. Eliza cooked and kept the cabin, finding comfort in domestic tasks after months of fear and uncertainty. Ryan tended his small herd of cattle and repaired storm damage, returning each evening with a quiet thank you for the hot meals she prepared. They talked more each day, careful conversations at first, then gradually more open ones. Ryan spoke of his years in the cavalry before becoming a marshal, of growing up in Pennsylvania before heading west after the war. Eliza shared stories of her childhood in Missouri, her brief happiness with Thomas, her dreams of perhaps someday opening a proper dressmaking shop. Neither mentioned William Brooks, though his threat hung over them like a dark cloud on the horizon. A week after Eliza's arrival, Ryan returned from town with news. "Judge Henderson will be here in 3 days. I've filed formal charges against William for liquor trading and assault." "Will my testimony be required?" Eliza asked, her hand stilling over the dress she was altering. "Yes," Ryan said honestly, "but you won't face him alone." The night before they were to ride into town, Eliza found Ryan on the porch, smoking a cigarette and staring at the stars. "What if it's not enough?" she asked, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders against the evening chill. "What if he walks free?" Ryan was quiet for a long moment. "Then we'll find another way. I won't let him hurt you again, Eliza." It was the first time he'd used her given name. The sound of it in his low voice made something flutter in her chest, something she thought had died with Thomas. "Why are you helping me, Ryan? Truly? You barely knew me." He tapped his cigarette against the porch rail, watching the ash fall. "My mother was beaten by my father for 15 years. No one ever stepped in, not once. She died from his fists when I was 17. His eyes, when they met hers, held old pain. "I promised myself if I ever saw someone in that position, I wouldn't look away." Eliza's throat tightened. Without thinking, she reached out and touched his hand. "I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry," he said, his voice rough. "Just be safe." The ride into Sweetwater Creek the next day was tense. Ryan had insisted Eliza wear her best dress, a deep blue calico that Thomas had bought her for their first Christmas together. With her bruises faded to yellow shadows and her hair neatly pinned, she looked stronger than she felt. The courthouse was a grand name for what was simply a large room attached to the sheriff's office. Judge Henderson, a stern man with spectacles and a no-nonsense demeanor, listened carefully as Ryan presented his case against William Brooks, calling witnesses who testified about the liquor trading and gambling offenses. When Eliza's turn came, she felt her hands shaking but kept her voice steady as she detailed the months of harassment and violence. William, seated across the room flanked by two deputies, glared at her with such hatred that she had to force herself not to look away. "You're nothing but a whore," William spat when she described the latest beating. "Running off with this marshal like a common, that's enough, Mr. Brooks," Judge Henderson said sharply. "One more outburst and I'll have you gagged for the remainder of these proceedings." William subsided, but his eyes promised retribution. After all testimony was heard, the judge declared a recess to consider his ruling. Ryan led Eliza to the hotel dining room for coffee, keeping himself between her and the curious stares of the townspeople. "You did well," he told her quietly. "Very well. It doesn't feel over," Eliza admitted. "Even if he goes to prison someday, he'll be out." Ryan didn't offer false reassurances, which Eliza appreciated. Instead, he simply said, "One day at a time, that's all any of us can do." The judge's decision came that afternoon. William Brooks was sentenced to 5 years in the territorial prison for liquor trading to Indians and assault. As the deputies led him away, he turned to Eliza. "This isn't finished," he hissed. "Not by a long shot." Ryan stepped forward, his hand on his gun. "It's finished, Brooks. Let it go." For a tense moment, it seemed William might lunge at them, deputies or no, but then he laughed, a hollow, frightening sound. "Enjoy her while you can, Marshal. Damaged goods don't last." Eliza flinched as if struck. Ryan moved closer to her, his presence solid and reassuring. "He's wrong," Ryan said once William was gone. "About everything." On the ride back to the homestead, neither spoke much. Eliza's emotions swung wildly between relief that William was bound for prison and fear that his threats were not empty. Ryan seemed lost in his own thoughts, his usual stoic expression even more withdrawn. At the cabin, as evening approached, Eliza finally broke the silence. "I should find my own place now. The danger's past." Ryan looked up from cleaning his revolver at the table. "Is that what you want?" "It's not about what I want," Eliza said carefully. "You've done more than enough. I can't impose further." "It's not an imposition." Ryan set down his gun, giving her his full attention. "These past days, it's been good having someone here." "For me as well," Eliza admitted. "But people will talk. People always talk." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Besides, I've gotten used to your cooking. Mine's terrible." Eliza couldn't help but laugh, a sound she'd almost forgotten how to make. "Is that all I am? A cook?" Ryan's expression grew serious. "No, Eliza. That's not all you are." Something in his voice made her heart race. She turned away, busying herself with the dishes to hide her confusion. She was a widow not yet a year, dependent on this man's protection and kindness. What right did she have to feel this flutter of attraction? And yet— "You could stay," Ryan said quietly, "not just for now, if you wanted." Eliza turned back to him, searching his face. "As what?" "As yourself, as Eliza." He stood, approaching her slowly. "I'm not asking anything of you. Just offering you a place where you can be safe, where you can build whatever life you want." "And what do you want, Ryan?" He looked down at his hands, then back to her face. "I want you to smile more. I want to never see fear in your eyes again. Beyond that." He shook his head. I've no right to want more. But Eliza saw it in his eyes, the same longing she felt, the same cautious hope. Without overthinking, she stepped closer and placed her hand on his cheek. His skin was warm, rough with stubble. "What if I want more?" she whispered. Ryan covered her hand with his own, his touch gentle. "Then we take it slow, get to know each other proper, do things right." "I'd like that," Eliza said, smiling despite the tears that threatened. "Very much." That night Ryan still slept in the barn and Eliza in the cabin's small bedroom. But something had shifted between them, an acknowledgement of possibilities, of a future neither had dared imagine before. As spring turned to summer, Eliza flourished in her new freedom. Word spread about her skill with a needle, and soon she was taking in sewing work from all over the county. Ryan built her a small workroom off the main cabin, with windows that caught the best light. She started putting aside money toward her dream of a proper shop. Their relationship grew slowly, respectfully. Meals together, conversations by the fire, occasional rides across the prairie when Ryan wasn't working. The first time he kissed her a gentle, questioning press of lips after walking her home from a town social, Eliza felt as if she were waking from a long, dark sleep. Thomas would have wanted her to be happy, she knew. He had been kind and loving, and they'd had a good marriage, brief though it was. But what she felt for Ryan was different, deeper somehow, built on shared hardship and mutual respect. In the fall, as golden light bathed the rolling grasslands, Ryan took Eliza to a ridge overlooking the creek that gave the town its name. They had ridden all morning, a picnic packed in his saddlebag, and now sat watching eagles circle above the water. "I've been thinking," Ryan said, his fingers laced with hers. "This marshal work, it's not something I want to do forever." "No," Eliza glanced at him, surprised. "He was good at his job, respected throughout the territory. No, been saving up. There's land for sale north of here, good grazing. Could run twice the cattle I have now." He looked at her, uncertainty in his usually confident eyes. "But a ranch that size needs more than one person to run it." Eliza's heart quickened. "Is that a proposal, Deputy Marshal Yates?" "Not yet," he said with a small smile. "That'll come with a ring and me on one knee, proper like. This is checking if a proposal might be welcome when the time's right." Eliza squeezed his hand. "It would be very welcome." The kiss they shared then was full of promise of a future together, of healing and growth, of love born from kindness and respect. The proposal came at Christmas, with a simple gold band that had belonged to Ryan's grandmother. They married in April 1879, almost a year to the day after Ryan had found Eliza behind Donovan's saloon. The whole town turned out, curious about the marshal and the widow who had caused such a stir the previous year. Ryan resigned his deputy position, though he occasionally still helped the sheriff when needed. They bought the northern land as planned, and by summer had begun construction on a larger house to replace the cabin that had been their first home together. Word came that William Brooks had died in prison during a fight with another inmate. Eliza felt no joy at the news, but the shadow of fear that had lingered at the edges of her life finally lifted completely. By their first anniversary, the new house was finished, a comfortable two-story home with a wide porch and plenty of room for the family they both hoped to have. Eliza's dressmaking business thrived in a dedicated space in town that Ryan had helped her secure. The Yates Ranch gained a reputation for fair dealings and quality stock. On a warm evening in late spring 1880, they sat on their porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Ryan's arm was around Eliza's shoulders, his fingers absently playing with a strand of her hair that had come loose from its pins. "You ever think about that night?" Eliza asked. "Behind the saloon, sometimes," Ryan admitted. Mostly I think how close I came to not finding you. I almost went home a different way that night. Eliza leaned into him, grateful for whatever twist of fate had brought him to that alley. I never thanked you properly, for saying those words. Ryan looked down at her, puzzled. What words? Pack your things, you're coming home with me, Eliza quoted. I think I started falling in love with you that very moment, even though I was too scared and hurt to recognize it. Ryan pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her temple. Best words I ever spoke then. As darkness settled over the prairie, they stayed on the porch, talking quietly of the future of children they hoped for, of the ranch's expansion, of Eliza's plans to hire an apprentice for her increasingly successful business. Neither could have imagined, on that bloody evening 2 years earlier, that such happiness awaited them. From violence and desperation had come a love built on respect and trust, a love as vast as the Dakota sky above them, and as enduring as the rolling plains that stretched to the horizon. I love you, Eliza Yates, Ryan whispered against her hair. And I love you, Ryan Yates, she answered, turning in his arms to kiss him properly. Thank you for bringing me home. In the years that followed, their love only deepened. The Yates ranch prospered, eventually becoming one of the largest in the territory. Eliza's dressmaking business expanded to include a proper ladies' shop that served customers from 3 counties around. They welcomed twin daughters in 1881 and a son in 1883, filling their home with laughter and life. And though the West would change around them with railroads and telegraphs and statehood eventually coming to Dakota, Ryan and Eliza's love remained constant, a testament to the healing power of kindness and the strength found in second chances. They never forgot how their story began with a bruised widow, a compassionate cowboy, and 7 simple words spoken behind a saloon that changed both their lives forever.